I returned to my office, the heat from my coffee mug still warming my hand, only to freeze in my tracks. 3 compliance officers, dressed in grim suits, were combing through my desk. Drawers hung open, papers were scattered chaotically, and my computer screen flickered with unauthorized activity. Routine audit, one muttered dismissively, barely acknowledging me, as though I were an insignificant nuisance. Routine? Far from it. My gut screamed that this was no accident. My ex-wife, Cassandra, and her new spouse, Victor, were orchestrating this. Since our acrimonious divorce, they'd been relentless, plotting to unravel my existence at every opportunity. This invasion bore their unmistakable malice. I set my coffee down with purpose, my voice calm as granite. Found anything interesting? I asked, tilting my head slightly. One officer glanced nervously at the file he clutched, his face draining of color. The others tensed, their eyes widening in sync. A heavy silence blanketed the room for a moment. Then, as if synchronized, they closed the folder abruptly, exchanging looks filled with unease. "Sir," one said tightly, "we need to verify something." I leaned against my desk nonchalantly, concealing the fire raging inside. Whatever Cassandra and Victor expected the officers to find, they hadn't. Instead, they'd uncovered something far more incriminating, something even they weren't prepared to confront. In that moment, I realized the tide had turned. This was no longer their play. It was mine. The quiet stretched, taut as a drawn bowstring. The documents meant to ruin me had instead paralyzed the officers with shock. One swallowed hard, his grip on the folder tightening until his knuckles whitened. What is this?" he murmured, almost to himself. I tilted my head subtly. "You're the experts. You tell me." The officer by my computer turned the screen toward me. My stomach tightened, but my face remained unreadable. There, in bold, unmistakable text, was a folder named Victor Confidential. It contained a trove of files, PDFs, receipts, scanned agreements, transactions routed through obscure accounts, international transfers, names of officials tied to suspiciously exact amounts. This wasn't my work. It was Victor's. In his haste to frame me, the fool had planted evidence on the company server under my login. But instead of fake proof, the officers had stumbled upon his genuine, deeply illegal operations. One slammed the laptop shut and whispered sharply, "This goes beyond you. We're escalating this immediately." I nearly let a grin escape. Nearly. Because now I possessed a truth Cassandra and Victor hadn't anticipated. They thought today would break me. Instead, it was the day I gained the power to undo them. The officers didn't leave right away. Instead, 2 of them guided me into a small side room, the blinds rattling as the door shut. One leaned in, his voice hushed and pressing. "Listen carefully. What we found isn't just grounds for firing. It's criminal. Offshore accounts, shell companies, bribes, and your ex-wife's husband is at the center." I crossed my arms, my expression neutral. "And you're telling me this why?" The senior officer sighed heavily, his tone dropping even lower. "Because someone tried to pin this on you. But the setup is sloppy. Your name is on the surface, but every clue points back to Victor." I let the silence linger, then asked the question I already knew the answer to. "So, I'm in the clear?" "In the clear?" The officer gave a dry laugh. "You're more than that. You could be the key to taking him down." That was when the scales tipped decisively in my favor. Cassandra and Victor had aimed to destroy me, but their own hubris had delivered their darkest secrets to me, neatly wrapped. I nodded slowly. "If you want him, I'll help. But on one condition. My name stays out of the public eye. I've been through enough." The officer glanced at his partner, then nodded curtly. "Agreed. But if I were you, I'd keep a low profile. Men like Victor get dangerous when cornered." I didn't reply, because what he didn't know was that I wasn't just going to assist in catching Victor. I was going to ensure Cassandra and Victor saw their world implode from the inside. 3 days later, I carried on as if nothing had shifted. Work, gym, dinners with my son on my custody nights. But beneath my composed surface, a storm was gathering. Cassandra broke the quiet first, showing up unannounced at my apartment, her high-end heels clicking sharply, oversized sunglasses hiding her eyes. Her knock was aggressive, insistent. When I opened the door, she pushed past me. "What have you done?" she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. I raised an eyebrow. "Good to see you too." "Don't play dumb," she snapped. "Victor's company accounts are frozen. The SEC is sniffing around. Do you understand what this means for us?" Us. The word was almost laughable. I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Cassandra, maybe the real question is why federal investigators are looking into Victor's accounts at all." A flash of fear crossed her face, too swift to hide, before she forced a tight, venomous smile. "You think you're clever, don't you? You're nothing without us." "Nothing." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Later that night, Victor himself confirmed their downfall. My phone glowed with a text from an unknown number. "Midnight. Pier 19. Alone. We need to talk. Victor." I stared at the message for a long moment before a faint smile crossed my lips. He thought he was the hunter, luring me into a late-night confrontation. What he didn't know was that the compliance officers had already tapped his phones. By the time I reached Pier 19, every word he uttered would be recorded. The fog draped heavily over the water, dimming the city's lights until only faint glimmers danced on the waves. Pier 19 stood nearly deserted, save for the distant calls of seagulls and the soft creak of ropes against weathered wood. Victor waited at the pier's edge, his trench coat collar flipped up, pacing restlessly. When he saw me, he flashed a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "You're a real pain, you know that?" he growled as I neared. "You think you can just walk away from Cassandra and me without consequences?" My voice stayed even. Pretty ironic, coming from the guy who tried to frame me with fake evidence. He let out a harsh, empty laugh. "Evidence? No, buddy. This is bigger than that. You've stumbled into something you can't grasp." I tilted my head. "Then enlighten me." Victor leaned closer, his voice a low hiss. "The offshore accounts, the compliance flags, they're just the tip. There's money moving you can't even fathom. Deals made at levels you'll never reach. Keep pushing, and I'll make sure you vanish for good." I let his threat hang in the air, unfazed, because what Victor didn't know was that every word was being recorded. The tiny wire hidden in my jacket was transmitting his confession to the investigators listening in real time. I stepped back, offering a faint smile. "The thing about truth, Victor, it always surfaces, no matter how deeply you try to bury it." For the first time, his smirk faltered. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before he could press further, two figures emerged from the fog behind him. Plainclothes agents, their badges glinting faintly. Victor hadn't noticed them yet. And in that moment, I knew his empire was about to collapse. Victor finally heard the soft scrape of shoes behind him. He spun around, his face contorting with confusion as the two agents stepped out of the mist, their badges flashing briefly. "Victor Langston," one said sharply. "You're under investigation for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to obstruct federal compliance. Come with us." His jaw dropped. "What? No, this is a mistake. He set me up." He pointed at me, but I merely crossed my arms, my expression almost detached. "Funny," I said coolly. "You've been trying to frame me for weeks. Looks like you got sloppy." The agents moved quickly, cuffing him before he could bolt. He struggled, shouting profanities that echoed across the water. "Cassandra! Cassandra, help me!" As if on cue, headlights cut through the fog. A sleek black car screeched to a stop, and Cassandra stumbled out, her heels clattering on the pier. Her face was a mask of rage, until she saw Victor in handcuffs. "What is this?" she stammered. One agent turned to her. "Mrs. Langston, we'll need to speak with you too. Your name is on multiple related accounts." Her face paled. "No, I'm not involved in this." Victor let out a bitter laugh. "Don't act innocent, Cass. You told me to do it. You wanted him ruined. You said it was the only way we'd be free." Cassandra's hand flew to her mouth, but the agent's recorders had already captured the damning words. I stepped forward, my voice low and sharp. "You wanted me gone, broken and penniless. Instead, you've buried yourselves." I leaned closer, just for her ears. "You picked the wrong man to underestimate." Her eyes filled with tears as the agents led Victor away. The car door slammed shut, and for the first time, Cassandra stood completely alone. her web of lies unraveling around her. I turned and walked back down the pier, the fog swallowing their voices. Each step felt lighter, because revenge wasn't about rage, it was about patience, precision, and perfect timing. Tonight, every piece had aligned perfectly. The news of Victor's arrest spread like wildfire. By morning, his mugshot dominated local news websites. Financial advisor caught in federal fraud scandal. Journalists dug up every sordid detail of his past. And with each report, Cassandra's carefully crafted image shattered further. Her family, once arrogant and untouchable, now faced a flood of calls from furious investors, betrayed clients, and shocked neighbors. At the grocery store, whispers followed Cassandra like a ghost. Parents steered their children away. Former allies crossed the street to avoid her. But the hardest blow came in court. The recordings, Victor and Cassandra plotting my destruction, were fully admissible. My lawyer had already filed for full custody of our son, citing endangerment and conspiracy. The judge needed little convincing. Cassandra was reduced to supervised visits, her anguished cry in the courtroom echoing long after the gavel fell. Meanwhile, I rebuilt quietly. My company, nearly suffocated by Victor's false accusations, began to flourish again. Clients who once hesitated now admired my resilience. Some even said, "If you can survive that storm, I trust you with my business." One evening, weeks later, I walked home with my son when we passed Cassandra outside a closed cafe. She was a shadow of her former self, hair unkempt, clothes wrinkled, eyes hollow. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. My son tightened his grip on my hand and whispered, "She doesn't scare me anymore." I knelt, kissed his forehead, and smiled. Good. She can't hurt us now. Cassandra's tears fell silently as we walked away. She had mocked me, underestimated me, tried to erase me. But in the end, it wasn't my anger that undid her. It was her own arrogance. And I didn't just reclaim my life. I made it stronger, freer, and untarnished. Months later, I returned to Pier 19, where it all started, the place Cassandra and her allies once thought they'd won. I stood there as the sun sank low, casting golden hues across the ocean. My son sat beside me, swinging his legs off the pier's edge, his smile brighter than it had been in years. Behind us, the laughter of families, whole unbroken families, floated softly. I thought of how Cassandra had tried to steal that from me, certain her wealth and pride would shield her. But pride is a weak defense against truth. Somewhere in the city, she was alone, her reputation in ruins, her inheritance drained by lawsuits and debts. Victor languished in prison, his name a synonym for disgrace. Her family no longer answered her calls. I closed my eyes, recalling the warning I'd given them. "You'll regret this." They'd laughed then. Now that warning was the only sound left in their lives, a prophecy fulfilled with devastating precision. My son nudged me, holding up a seashell he'd found. "Can we keep this, Dad? A memory of today." I smiled, slipping the shell into my pocket. "Of course, son. Today, we're making memories worth keeping." We stood and walked away, leaving the pier behind, along with every trace of betrayal. For them, regret was permanent. For us, only peace remained. Was this justice perfectly delivered, or should the consequences have been harsher? Share your thoughts below. I read everyone. If you crave justice, give this a like and share it with someone who needs its fire. Betrayals don't sleep. They stalk their creators. Every shadow hides a consequence. Every mask falls. And every betrayal meets its reckoning. Stay vigilant. Stay unbroken.